Brian Geisinger, our basketball brainiac at bgeis_bird on Twitter. Split the action on Substack, Buzzbeat Podcast, 24/7 Sports, Pack Bride, all of that. All right, let's just start with NC State so we can move past it. Man, this has. I watch your post game pods with Corey Smith a lot. What are your thoughts on what has I mean, I don't even know if unraveled is the right word. They were never raveled at any point this year. So, what are your thoughts on where this really went sideways for the Wolfpack? It's not mathematically done. If they win their last two and Notre Dame loses to Stanford and Cal at home this week, the Wolfpack will still get to Charlotte, but I don't anticipate them winning two, and Notre Dame's probably going to win one anyway. So where did this all go sideways?
Yeah, I mean, it just never really quite got off the ground. And when you have something like that, I think you have to go back to the previous offseason and roster construction. We've talked about multiple times on the show or texting off air, whatever. You and I have sort of talked about the roster and how it came together, how it didn't come together.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of there's different people want to place the blame in different areas, but regardless of how you assess that, they didn't. This is not a roster that has a lot of offensive plus offensive talent on it, and they lost their two best playmakers and shot creators from a season ago with DJ Horn and DJ Burns. They also lost Mo Diarra, who was a really good player for them. Good rebounder. Maybe their best defender, could also do stuff for them offensively, and they just never found a real way to replace the playmaking of Horn and Burns. I think Styles has come in and played pretty well as like a stretch four for them this season. He's not the same rebounder defender and versatile defender as Diarra, but he's been probably their most reliable player offensively. And so I think it really comes down to it's not just not having enough shooters on the team, but I think part of it too is also not having really someone that can operate pick and roll, get two to the ball offensively, create advantages, and set up easy shots for everyone else. Because I think there are a lot of good players on the roster, but just not nearly enough plus offensive talent to really bend and manipulate defenses. And they routinely are unable to score consistently in half court. And obviously, the defense hasn't been great this season either. I think there's a few things we can sort of point the finger at for that as well. But really, it's the offense that has just been stuck in the mud. Game one through this past weekend against Georgia Tech.
Yeah, they got run second half. I don't know what happened down the stretch, but I know a lot of people go, well, they gave up. I hate that term. I don't think players, even at this level, do a lot of giving up. But I do think you can get discouraged, and when you get discouraged, you stop playing the way you're supposed to play because it ain't working. And maybe guys are out looking for their own offense, and that's never a recipe to stick around in a game. Brian Geisinger is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. They seem to me to have a number of good players, maybe not plus players, maybe not B plus players, but in this ACC, am I crazy to think that, man, they shouldn't be 16th? Is that nuts to think?
Yeah.
Right? It is crazy?
Yeah. I mean, I think part of it, too, is they had some bad luck in close games. I mean, that's part of it. They lost I don't know. I don't have the record in front of me in terms of 1 to 2 possession games, but my guess would be that it wasn't great this season. I mean, I think they probably still should have been better against in a down year for the ACC. But, I think it just really goes to show you, if you're going to really struggle, to consistently generate offense in the half court, it's tough to win games almost regardless of competition. And I think for State, there's just been a template for how to defend them this season. They've been able to, and they have not been able to, sort of bust up that template. And I think even for some of the weaker teams in the league, a la Georgia Tech, they can get stops. and that allows them to then, go play complimentary basketball more on the other end too. So, a disappointing season for sure. Some bad luck involved, but ultimately, they probably also underachieved some this season too.
Brian Geisinger is joining us. Split the Action on Substack. You should check it out. All right, to the Tar Heels. 5 in a row, no good teams, but what have you liked that is carry-overable to this week, next week?
Yeah, I think it starts with the forwards. I mean, Jalen Withers continues to shoot the ball well. That's a big deal, giving them that stretch, spacing component in the front court. All season long, they've been trying to find the right roster combination so that they could space the floor, but still have enough size defensively and guys that could flash and finish around the paint. And with Drake Powell, who's been excellent, in the last couple of weeks, and UNC's been very, very good with Drake on the court. He was certainly an upside guy for them all season. I mean, if they were ever going to hit another gear, it was going to be because he sort of took on a larger share of the role offensively, at least from my vantage point. But Withers coming on and being a front court athlete that can also stick some catch and shoot threes for them too, it just makes everything else blend in the half court, right? Because all of a sudden you've got multiple guys that can initiate pick and roll and can shoot and play make and pass with Davis and Cadeau. Jackson as a spot up shooter. Powell is the guy that can catch and go and can flash and can drive, and just the pieces fit in better with another sort of catch and shoot component alongside Jackson and Davis, who had really been the two guys that had been reliable, spot up, catch and shoot guys for the season. And even then, Davis and Jackson have both been up and down a little bit too. So I would say the Withers development and also Powell just sort of stepping into a pretty serious role. And even in this 5-game win streak, and they've won 6 of their last 7. The minutes of Powell on the court have been really, really good.
All right, so we're going to kick this forward by bringing up the Duke-Carolina game here coming up on Saturday, and I'm not automatically giving the Virginia Tech win on the road to the Tar Heels, but they have to have it. And Duke, I guess if they, I don't think they've clinched anything yet, so Duke needs to beat Wake Forest tonight at home. But looking ahead to Saturday, does North Carolina's setup with Withers and Powell and whether it's Lubin or Washington at the 5, can they be good enough defensively to beat Duke?
It's a big ask, but I think so. Yeah, I think they can. We've seen, we know how UNC wants to defend. They want to keep teams out of the middle or play drop coverage. Maybe they'll mix it up. They'll switch at times, and they'll be, they'll trap at times too. But for the most part, what they want to do. And if they're able to be able to space the court offensively with Withers and Powell on that side of the court, then they have more size for the Cooper Flag matchup, and you don't have to have Seth Trimble guard him for 30 whatever minutes, and then you can maybe single cover Flag in the post. That was such a swing piece from the first matchup was Cooper in the post and UNC starting off the game double teaming him and Duke being able to play out of that. If it's Powell or Withers, that's not, that matchup is still, Duke's still going to go to Cooper Flag, obviously. And they're going to go to him in the spots that he likes, and the mid post is one of them. But that matchup is not quite as, it's not quite as ripe maybe for Duke. And then again, if you can be in the gaps defensively and you're playing drop coverage, you can force Duke to, be a pull-up shooting team as opposed to a team that's able to slash and pick and spray out. Then yeah, I think it's possible. Obviously, Duke's offense is terrific. They've got a lot of great players. The scheme is excellent, and they've really been clicking. And obviously, Isaiah Evans, he's gone up a level for them throughout the season, and that's given them another gear. And who knows, what Malik Brown and Tyrese Proctor's status will look like for that game too, right?
Right.
Proctor, really important player from a passing and shooting standpoint. He had a great game against UNC last time. Malik Brown came back from his first set of injuries in the UNC game, and he was outstanding for them, right? And we talked about it after that game, like his ability to pass and make plays in the high post or on the short roll is a really nice solve against some of the stuff that UNC wants to do defensively too. So, if those guys aren't playing, and if UNC is able to put more size and length on flag, then I think there's somewhat of a blueprint. But obviously, like it's still going to be really hard. And obviously, the home crowd, having 20,000 people screaming behind you, that doesn't hurt either, right?
They should probably. I'll borrow from the late Bill Guthridge, who after their crazy snow game against Maryland, he referenced back to it, basically talking about the crowd. He goes, and if that doesn't work, we'll just bring in more snow. Maybe North Carolina should have another snowstorm so they get 15,000 students in the building to lose their collective minds. Although I think it'll be a great atmosphere for the Duke game either way. The one thing about North Carolina, Brian Geisinger is joining us here in the Adam Gold Show. The one thing I over the last few games for North Carolina that's been really good, and I'm not sure that this matters based on the level of competition, is that Carolina's been excellent on the offensive glass. So over this 5-game winning streak, they've been, in the, roughly give or take 40%, collecting their own misses. If they can do that, and Duke's a great defensive rebounding team, so it might be a bad matchup, but if they can get some second chance opportunities, to me that's the recipe. Duke missing a bunch of threes, and Carolina getting second chances. That to me is where North Carolina can be effective.
Yeah, that's how you swing the math, right? You get. You take a great three-point shooting team. They have a C- shooting night, and then UNC scrambles up the map a little bit by getting on the glass and by not having a lot of turnovers, right? And so you just get extra shots, extra possessions. And obviously UNC they still have a lot of offensive talent on this roster.
They do.
And so if you're able to have more possessions than normal, you're probably going to cash it in. And second chance opportunities, especially when they're direct putbacks, those are efficient offensive opportunities. Those are layups. Those are fouls. You get all kinds of good stuff out of that. And certainly this is part of the benefit of having being able to play Powell and Withers together, and just having sort of more size and length on the floor, while also still being able to stretch it, but certainly being able to have guys like that can get on the glass. And that's part of it. Duke is a very good defensive rebounding team. Flag is an amazing defensive rebounder.
Yeah.
And Malawach is probably up and down as a rebounder from a prospect evaluation standpoint, but ultimately he does a pretty good job controlling the glass for Duke too. So it's not easy just to get up and really do damage against those guys. That said, I think one of the weak spots for Duke this season has been front court second play, too experienced, true big guys against them, like Clemson with Locken and Shefflin, Kansas with Dickinson and Adams, and I'm blanking on Kentucky, I guess, with Williams and Carr and Garrison, I guess would be another one worth mentioning too. And Auburn as well. I mean, Duke won that game, but it was close in Cameron, and Auburn blitzed them at the start.
Yeah.
And Auburn's front line of Broome and Cardell and Johnson is obviously very, very good and experienced and strong.
Yeah,
too.
and we know why Duke won that game. Isaiah Evans won that game in the first 6 threes in the first half.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the reality of it. We talked to Seth Greenberg earlier. I asked him who the best team in the country was. I think he gave the right answer. I think Auburn is the best team in the country. It'll be a challenge for the Blue Devils. I'd love to see Duke and Auburn meet again, because more than likely that would be in either a national championship game or a national semifinal. They're both going to be 1 seeds. Final thing for you, Brian Geisinger, Buzzbeat podcast, split the action on Substack. Wake what's Wake's chances tonight against the Blue Devils?
Well, I know the spread is gigantic. I saw it was
19.5, Brian.
It's crazy.
19.5.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought the UNC game was going to be closer than some of the projection models had it, and I ended up being wrong about that. But Wake defensively, like this is a good defensive team. They've got a good front court with Spillers and Reed. When these two teams met up in Winston a few weeks ago, Wake almost won that game. I guess it was 5-6 weeks ago. Wake almost won that game. It took Duke going to zone defense and Cooper Flagg making some big plays down the stretch. Look, I think offensively Wake can struggle at times this season. A little reliant on Salas for shot creation. They don't have a ton of shooting in the front court. Though I do like sort of like what Duke Harris does for them as a catch and shoot guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think defensively, like if Wake can get the game into the mud, then they do have a chance. I also think the way Wake wants to defend, putting two on the ball, double team the post, hard hedge ball screens, like Duke has stuff lined up for that. And can capitalize off the advantage. And I guess we'll just see. I'm still waiting word on Tyrese Proctor and Malik Brown. I mean, if they're without two of their top 6 guys, 2 top 6 or 7 guys, I mean that matters too. So, but I would give Wake somewhat of a chance. Like this is a good team, and they've got good players on it, and they're going to be desperate. I mean, they need this game, more than Duke does, really.
There is no doubt about it that Duke doesn't need anything but health, right?
I mean, to an extent, Duke kind of. I mean, I guess I don't mean to downplay it. It's like Duke. If Duke wants to win the ACC and be the 1 seed in the ACC tournament, they need to win this game. And if they're thinking about setting up their bracket, March Madness opportunities for as good as possible, like they want to be the best 1 seed available.
Right.
That matters in terms of who you're playing potentially in the 3rd, 4th rounds, like that kind of stuff. So it matters significantly for both teams. Just Wake, this is more, I guess, like existential than anything.
Brian Geisinger, 24/7 Sports, Pac Pride, Buzzbeat Podcast, everywhere. Split the action on Substack. My man, I appreciate your time as always. Talk to you later.
Yeah, you guys take care.